Slices of bread smeared with the leftover fat from Sunday's roast, sprinkled with salt, served with a strong cup of tea. That was breakfast. Not a snack before breakfast. The entire meal. In Canadian homes throughout the 1950s, breakfast wasn't always the eggs, bacon, and toast spread we picture today. For working-class families, and there were a lot of them, breakfast was whatever could be made from what was already in the kitchen, using the absolute minimum because the real food budget had to stretch across lunch and dinner too. Many of these breakfasts didn't come from cookbooks. They came from necessity, repetition, and the quiet creativity of mothers feeding large families on small incomes. Today, we're counting down 10 of those breakfasts, the ones that fueled Canadian kids before school, kept farm workers going until lunch, and have almost completely vanished from how we eat in the morning. Stay until the end, because number 1 is a breakfast made from nothing but flour, water, and salt. And somehow, an entire generation remembers it fondly. 10 bread and dripping slices of bread, spread with leftover roast fat. We're starting with the breakfast that sounds the most shocking to modern ears, and was, for many working-class Canadian families in the 1950s, completely normal. After a Sunday roast, the fat that rendered out of the meat and collected in the pan was saved, poured into a jar or dish, and kept in the cold pantry or ice box. As it cooled, it solidified into dripping, with the meat juices and sediment settling at the bottom. The next morning, and often for several mornings afterward, that dripping was spread onto slices of bread like butter, sprinkled with salt and eaten with a cup of strong tea. The bottom layer, the part with the meat sediment mixed in, was actually considered the best part, the most flavorful. For families who couldn't afford to waste a single bit of fat from a roast that might have been the only meat they'd see all week, bread and dripping wasn't a sad fallback. It was, in its own way, a way of making one Sunday dinner stretch its flavor across an entire week of mornings. 9. Savory porridge oats. Cooked in broth, not milk and sugar. If you picture porridge today, you probably picture brown sugar, maybe some fruit, maybe a splash of cream. But before that became the norm, porridge in many working-class Canadian and British-influenced households was savory. Oats cooked not in milk, but in water, broth, or even leftover meat dripping, seasoned simply with salt. This version of porridge had a completely different purpose than the sweet version we know now. It wasn't a treat. It was fuel, designed to be filling and warming on a cold morning, particularly for rural families and farm workers who needed something substantial before hours of physical labor outdoors. The shift away from savory porridge happened gradually through the 1950s and 60s as sugar became more affordable and widely available, and as breakfast cereal advertising, increasingly aimed at children, reframed breakfast as something that should taste like dessert. Today, the idea of oatmeal cooked in broth and seasoned with salt feels almost foreign. But for a generation of Canadians, that was simply what porridge was. 8. Fried bread in bacon fat, the crowning glory of a working man's breakfast. This one is exactly what it sounds like, and it deserves its place on this list precisely because of how completely it has vanished. After bacon was fried in a pan, the fat left behind, hot, smoky, full of flavor, wasn't thrown out. Slices of bread went straight into that same pan, soaking up the bacon fat as they fried until golden, crisp on the outside and almost saturated through the middle. For a working man heading out for a long physical day, whether on a farm, in a factory, or on a construction site, fried bread represented an enormous number of calories for almost no additional cost. It used bread that was already in the house and fat that would otherwise have been wiped out of the pan and discarded. Served alongside eggs or bacon, fried bread was often the most filling part of the entire plate. Modern health consciousness has pushed this dish almost entirely out of existence. Today's breakfast culture treats frying bread in animal fat as an indulgence rather than a practical way to stretch a meal, which is exactly what it was originally designed to be. 7. Bread and milk. Bread SOP. Stale bread, softened in warm milk, sometimes with sugar. This dish appears in slightly different forms across working-class breakfast traditions throughout the early to mid-20th century. And it solved one of the most common problems in any household without modern food storage. What do you do with bread that's gone stale? Torn or cubed pieces of stale bread, placed in a bowl and covered with warm milk, sometimes with a spoonful of sugar stirred in, sometimes left plain and savory with just a pinch of salt. The bread softened almost immediately, becoming something between a porridge and a pudding. Easy to eat even for very young children or elderly family members. For families with several children, bread and milk was often the breakfast given to the youngest kids specifically. Filling, gentle, easy to make in large quantities, and using bread that would otherwise have gone to waste. It cost almost nothing. Bread that was a day or two old, and whatever milk was left from the previous day's delivery. 6. Toast and tea and nothing else. The breakfast that was sometimes just that. Sometimes the simplest item on a list is also the most quietly significant, because for a genuinely large number of Canadian households in the 1950s, particularly toward the end of the week when money had run thin, breakfast was just toast and tea. No eggs, no bacon, no porridge. Just bread, toasted, with butter or margarine if it was available, and a strong cup of tea, often with condensed milk stirred in, since fresh milk could be expensive or simply unavailable that day. This wasn't a special frugal recipe that someone wrote down in a cookbook. It was simply what breakfast was on the days it needed to be that. Kids went to school on toast and tea. Workers went to their shifts on toast and tea. It filled the immediate gap until lunch, and it cost as close to nothing as a meal could cost. What makes this one worth remembering isn't the food itself. It's what it represents. An entire meal, reduced to its most basic possible form, repeated countless mornings across the country by families who made it work. 5. Fried potatoes and onions breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Whatever the clock said. This dish has appeared on other lists in different contexts, as a Depression-era dinner, as a truck stop side. But in the 1950s, fried potatoes and onions were just as likely to appear on the breakfast table as anywhere else. Diced or sliced potatoes fried slowly in a pan with chopped onion until both were soft and golden, seasoned with salt and pepper. If there were eggs in the house, they often went on top, cracked directly into the same pan, cooked until set, turning the dish into a complete breakfast. If there weren't eggs, the potatoes and onions were the entire meal on their own. What made this dish so enduring was its flexibility around what time of day it was served. Potatoes and onions were two of the most reliably available, longest-lasting ingredients in any Canadian household. A sack of potatoes and a bag of onions could sit in a cool pantry for weeks. A meal that could be assembled from those two ingredients alone at any hour for any meal represented exactly the kind of flexibility that working families needed. 4. The homestead breakfast, potatoes, bacon, and eggs, all fried together. 1 skillet, 3 ingredients, a full day's energy. This is, in many ways, the more substantial cousin of fried potatoes and onions. And it represents the version of breakfast that families made when they did have a bit more on hand. Diced potatoes and chopped bacon, fried together in a single skillet until the potatoes were crisp and the bacon had rendered its fat into them, with chopped onion added for flavor, and eggs cracked directly into the pan at the end. cooking right into the mixture as everything came together into something closer to a hash than a traditional plated breakfast. This dish was specifically designed around the idea that breakfast needed to keep someone full for hours. There was no mid-morning snack budget, no quick trip to a coffee shop. Whatever was eaten at breakfast had to last until lunch, sometimes longer. The combination of starch, fat, and protein in a single skillet did exactly that, and it used ingredients that most households, even modest ones, were likely to have at least some of. 3. Molasses on toast or porridge sweetness without the cost of sugar. Before refined white sugar became cheap and universally available, molasses played a role in Canadian kitchens that's almost entirely forgotten today. As the everyday sweetener for breakfast, especially in households where every grocery item had to be carefully justified. A spoonful of molasses drizzled over toast or stirred into porridge provided sweetness at a fraction of the cost of sugar or certainly of jam, which required fruit, which required either a garden or money, neither of which every family had in abundance. Molasses, by contrast, came in large tins that lasted for months, and a small amount went a long way. For kids in particular, molasses on toast or porridge represented the sweet version of breakfast, the version that felt like a small treat, even though the underlying ingredients were about as basic and inexpensive as breakfast could get. As white sugar, jam, and eventually sugary cereals became more affordable and more heavily marketed through the 1950s and 60s, molasses quietly faded from the breakfast table, surviving mostly in baking rather than as a topping in its own right. 2. Cheese toast, cheese dreams, bread, cheese, and the oven. Dressed up with a better name. This one earns its place on the list almost entirely because of its name, which tells you everything about the aspirational thinking behind 1950s frugal cooking. Cheese toast, slices of bread topped with cheese and baked in the oven until melted and slightly crisp at the edges, was functionally almost identical to a basic grilled cheese, minus the second slice of bread and the frying pan, but by baking it in the oven rather than frying it on the stove, and by giving it the much more appealing name Cheese Dreams, the dish was elevated, at least in presentation, from the cheapest possible breakfast to something that sounded like a treat. This is one of the more telling items on this list, because it reveals something about how families in the 1950s thought about food. It wasn't just about making cheap meals, it was about making cheap meals feel special, giving them names and presentations that gave the people eating them, especially kids, the sense that breakfast was something to look forward to, even when the ingredients told a much plainer story. 1. Poverty pancakes, flour, water, and salt. No eggs, no milk, no butter, just a hot pan. And here it is, the breakfast that takes poor man's meal to its most literal extreme and somehow remains, for the people who grew up eating it, a genuinely fond memory. Flour mixed with water and a pinch of salt formed into a thin batter and fried in a hot pan until set on both sides. That's the entire recipe. No eggs for richness, no milk for tenderness, no butter for flavor, just flour, water, and heat. By any objective measure, these pancakes weren't particularly good. Thin, somewhat tough, with none of the fluffiness or richness that eggs and milk provide. But they were hot. They were filling in the sense that they provided calories when there was genuinely nothing else in the house to provide them, and drizzled with whatever sweetener was available. Molasses, if there was any, or even just a bit of sugar if the household had splurged. They became, for many families, breakfast on the hardest mornings. What's remarkable is how many people who grew up with this dish describe it not with embarrassment, but with genuine nostalgia, not because the pancakes were good, but because someone made them on a morning when there wasn't much else to make, and that effort, that hot plate of something on the table, is what people remember, not the ingredients. The fact that breakfast happened at all, 10 breakfasts, an entire decade of Canadian mornings, built not around what people wanted to eat, but around what they had, and the quiet ingenuity it took to turn almost nothing into a meal. Some of these breakfasts disappeared because we simply got richer. Sugar got cheaper, eggs got more affordable, and the pressure to stretch every ingredient eased. Others disappeared because our ideas about health changed, and fat-soaked bread stopped looking like breakfast and started looking like a problem. But for the people who grew up eating these meals, they weren't a hardship to be remembered with shame. They were just breakfast, made by someone who got up early, worked with what was there, and put something hot on the table before everyone walked out the door.